So our next guest is awesome on Twitter. And I have to start with that because who knows when he's going to be banned. I suspect it could be any day now. But he's also the former chief marketing officer for the Trump campaign. Kaelan Dorr, thank you so much for being with us, Kaelan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I'm great on Twitter, but I'm even better at losing Twitter followers lately.
Oh,
I'm glad. I thought I was dialing into the Trump line today, so I'm really glad I got a hold of you.
I think we're all losing followers, but according to Jake Tapper, only babies care about that. Adults don't count their followers, Kaelan. But my question for you is, what is your first reaction to Biden's economic relief package? And more importantly, something that I notice you really follow is the media's reaction to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing for people to realize is that what we're seeing broadly, in the media and on social media and everything like that is that, we've spent 4 years wrestling power away from these people, from the left-wing corporatist alliance, from your fake tappers, your Brian Stelters, and this is their reaction to that, right? They're bubble wrapping an incoming Biden administration to make sure that, nothing, you were just saying, right? The guy is boring as all get out. And, they are trying to find ways to make sure that he is not the story. I think that's something you see. I don't know if you're obviously an avid Twitter user. The Kamala Harris Vogue cover, for example. Let me ask your opinion. Does it matter to anybody what color, pantsuit she's wearing for the day?
Actually,
but no,
Kaelan,
that drove news on Twitter.
Actually, Kaelan, I did talk about that story on the air because I felt as though it reminded me of when my mom used to pick out Christmas cards without consulting me, and she would send it out to everyone, and I would see the photo, and I'd be like, that's the one you went with? So I kind of understood that from a female perspective. But Kaelan, you tweeted something that I hadn't seen yet, and it was Brian Stelter kind of mocking Trump for his latest address where he used a teleprompter. And I was thinking to myself, the lack of self-awareness, do they realize that Joe Biden, he couldn't do one sentence off the cuff, let alone a speech, but they are mocking Trump for using a teleprompter.
And it's absolutely insane because the guy, Joe Biden, doesn't know what he's talking about. He's taking all of his cues from a teleprompter. He's taking all of his cues from somebody, from the ingrained political establishment, right? I mean, the guy's economic package, which you just asked me about, it's absurd. It's going to kill more small businesses than it saves. A $15 minimum wage increase is absolutely insane. And then you couple that with some of the lockdown and COVID procedures you're seeing in states around the country. I understand Charlie Baker is particularly a big offender of this, and you're going to see, businesses and people continue to suffer as a result. And not even to mention the fact that Democrats have held up any sort of COVID relief or economic stimulus for however many months now. But they got around to impeaching the president in the House in a matter of days.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder.
Absurd.
It makes you wonder about their priorities. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, Kaelan, is this story about John Sullivan. I mean, it's all over Twitter. It's not really all over the news stations because they don't want to talk about it. But this man, who is described as a left-wing activist, was really egging on these people at the Capitol. Do you think this is the only story we're going to hear about this?
Well, I love how you mentioned, we'll be looking forward to an Avenatti Sullivan ticket at some point or another. I mean, they're gonna. The media has spent, and again, I'll preface all this by saying, what happened last week was, truly, it was horrific. The president has obviously condemned all the violence that took place, but the left-wing media is very keen to glorify these protests, to glorify these individuals when it fits their needs, right? They move in lockstep with the left. And, I mean, it's a short answer to your question is, yes, this is probably going to be the last thing we see of John Sullivan. I know I actually just saw on Twitter a minute ago, John Sullivan was in a Uber commercial, a year or so ago. I mean, the guy has been around. And for them to bill him the way that they did on Anderson Cooper's show, to talk to him, to even allow him to interview with, the Rolling Stone. I mean, they're all just tanking their credibility in a way that is really sad. I mean, the media has a due diligence to cover these things appropriately, especially given how tense everything is. I mean, I'm living in D.C. right now, and it's not great. I mean, there's the National Guard out on the streets and all that, and tensions are high, and so they're just absolutely it's just a miscarriage of justice. They're not doing their jobs. And it's just gross. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, and there's some stories when you hear them, and you don't have to be a journalist or Sherlock Holmes or anything. You hear it and you go, that sounds kind of weird. Like this guy was at D.C. to document the riots that nobody knew were going to happen until they happened. And it reminds me of things like the Jussie Smollett story where things don't add up, but these journalists, they don't want to take any time to question them because it fits their narrative so well. So they just run with it right away.
Well, yeah, and then even had they done their due diligence on any of this, you mean to tell me that it's okay to take this man's word for what he's saying? Where for the last 4 years the president makes a joke and they treat it like the sky is falling. It's just the double standard, the mental gymnastics that you have to do to understand the logic at play here is just it's exhausting.
No,
I think
totally
the American
agree.
people are definitely understanding that. Yeah.
Kaelan, I'm talking to Kaelan Dorr. You can find him on Twitter at KDorr, DORR_USA. Kaelan, there's a shift now that's happening, and the timing is amazing. It's so coincidental. All of a sudden, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot and Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, they're all saying, we have to open up. If we don't open up now, there's going to be nothing left to open up. And then a story comes out of Newsweek where it says, COVID lockdowns have no clear benefit versus other voluntary measures, international study shows. Does the timing of this surprise you at all?
No, I mean, absolutely not. I think this is definitely a coordinated effort. They've been playing politics. The left has been playing politics with this virus, this pandemic, almost the entire time. I mean, you look at it. I like to think that in this most recent election, we weren't necessarily running against Joe Biden at times. We were actually running against the virus itself, and trying to manage that. And we're running against an opponent who, obviously earned $5 and earned media coverage every time someone put a mask on. I mean, it's truly horrific. But you see the shift in tone to ending lockdowns also coincide with the fact that the media is no longer talking daily about how many COVID deaths there are and shaming the president about it. It makes one wonder, right? And this is truly, I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but it would seem to be that there's some sort of coordinated effort at play here.
Yeah, and speaking of that, as someone who's in the marketing world, I'm sure that you've thought a lot about big tech and Jack Dorsey. Do you think there's anything that can be done or should be done so that free speech is protected? Or do you think that what Jack Dorsey did to Trump by banning him is just what we're going to see more of going forward?
I wouldn't. I'm not the kind of person who's going to sit here and say the sky is falling. I hope, from the bottom of my heart that we don't see, the mass canceling of conservatives, across the board. But I mean, it's not only happening on Twitter; it's happening in real life. And I think those things coming together mean that we're probably looking at a world in which they're going to continue to deplatform and delegitimize conservatives because they're the other, right? I mean, they're all on one side, and there's this roving band of conservative folks who just happens to be, upwards of 75 million people who voted for the president. It's just absurd. And, you're seeing it in real life, too. It's not just what's happening on Twitter. I mean, I think that was what struck me about Jack's statement yesterday. He tweeted out about, having the real life consequences of what happens on the internet. And what we're seeing is, I mean, there's countless stories about people from the Trump administration who have been unable to get jobs, or, I've been at this down the street. I went to print my resume at a Kinko's the other day, and the lady, called me a racist pig because she saw it was on my resume. I mean, it's never gonna stop, Grace. And I think what we're seeing is real life is being reflected on the internet and vice versa. And, it wouldn't surprise me to see him continue down this path. Now, hopefully, I think Congress and the president have been very vocal about, ways to amend, Section 230. But, it may even have to go farther than that. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on social media, but again, it's mirroring real life, and it's going to get really, really scary because it's not a minority that believes these things.
And it's also, I mean, we saw with Ben Shapiro yesterday, he wrote a newsletter for Politico. It's called Their Playbook. And it was all about that. And it was really about how, some conservatives who didn't vote to impeach Trump don't necessarily agree with everything Trump does, but they see this as more of a coordinated effort to silence Republicans. And what ended up happening was Politico and their newsroom freaked out because some of the liberal snowflakes, I can't think of a better word for it, didn't like that Ben Shapiro was allowed to write their newsletter.
Yeah, no, and my favorite part about this entire story is that Chris Hayes, the MSNBC guy, was on, who was a guest author earlier in the week, and that guy is legit nuts. I mean, he's out tweeting every day about how anyone who voted for Trump has blood on their hands, and attacking conservative columnists on Twitter with seemingly no basis. I mean, the guy's crazy, but no one had any objections then. God forbid a conservative, take the pen and write a morning newsletter that is read on on Capitol Hill. And I think, I'm not sure how wide their viewership is. I know it's a big deal here in D.C. That's where all the, establishment folks like to submit their names for the daily birthday list and things like that. So I know it's pretty well read here, but I mean, it's an echo chamber, right? It's all the establishment folks, the libs, for lack of a better term, and they're just, triggering one another.
And it's so funny because, he really was saying, listen, we can't be afraid of other opinions. And their immediate reaction was, we're afraid of your opinion. You're too dangerous. We need to end this.
We need to do a Zoom call with everybody.
Right. And then two people on the Zoom call said, I disagreed with their decision, but I was too afraid to offer my opinion because it seemed like everyone in the Zoom call was, against Ben Shapiro and the newsletter decision. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is where we're at with civil discourse. This is where we're at with free speech. It's really frightening. Guys, I'm talking to Kaelan Dorr. Make sure you guys check him out at KDorr, DORR_USA. Kaelan, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you join the Grace Curley Show again in the future.
Absolutely, Grace. Thanks for having me on. Y'all have a good one.
You too. Guys, I have to let you know that people say there's no such thing as a free lunch, but our VIP right now is about to realize that there is such thing as a free lunch, and it can be delicious. That's because with my friends at Aviva Trattoria, we'll be giving away a free lunch every other Friday here at the studio. 2 lucky listeners will have an incredible meal by Aviva and watch the show with me in studio. All you have to do to enter is go to gracecurleyshow.com and sign up. I'll select the winners on every other Friday. Today I was blown away by the spread. I mean, Jared, you got a better look at it than I did, but describe to us what's going on out there.
So we know we love the chicken parm. They also have chicken piccata, which they brought, which is fantastic. They have the arancini, which are the Italian rice balls, for those who don't know.
I saw those.
They do pizzas as well. They brought a buffalo chicken pizza and what they call their farmhouse pizza, which has balsamic barbecue, cheddar cheese, roasted chicken, smoked bacon, leeks, and honey mustard on it. They brought a couple of sandwiches in, like they have panini sandwiches. I mean, it's a solid spread. The
VIPs will be happy.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing, and they're so great. They have 4 convenient locations in Marlborough, Maynard, Wrentham, and Westford. Takeout is available, too. So to enter, go to gracecurleyshow.com. You will see that pop down. And I think what we're going to start doing is we're going to pick the winners, and then we're going to let the winners go to the menu for Aviva.
Nice.
And kind of look at, what's the...
that is VIP.
What is the actual URL, Jared? Do you have it up there? I noticed that you were looking at the menu earlier.
AvivaTrattoria.com.
Perfect. And they can go check it out and see what kind of food they would like for their free lunch and in-studio experience at The Grace Curley Show. Guys, we will be right back. This is The Grace Curley Show.
You're listening to The Grace Curley Show.